Welcome back to the Weekend Warrior Show Recap Podcast. I'm Ty from the Unemployed Architects. This week, flying solo. I feel, terrible, awful about not putting on a podcast last week, but, sometimes the week just gets away from me. Like, I had 4 shows in 3 days, and one of them I was kind of prepping for, trying to get a bunch of stuff together for probably the biggest show of the summer, which is the Distill show. But, I don't know. It just got away from me. And I had a guest the week before, and those podcasts always take a little extra time to record and edit and all that. So, I just missed it. But, it all falls back to me perpetually feeling behind on everything, because it probably doesn't really matter, honestly. But I can't be happy about that. But anyway, and it's another really long period of time without doing a solo. So I have a lot of shows to talk about. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 shows to talk about, which is a lot. But we'll get into it here. So the one I left off on this last pod was the Rivian market, which was definitely a scheduling snafu quite a bit. They told me the day before, and it was they told me the Tuesday, but it was actually Wednesday. So then I had to move a bunch of lessons around. Not ideal, but it happens, and it's nobody's fault really. It was just a miscommunication, and ultimately it was really hot outside. It was Wednesday. It was like a special thing they had going on, so it was a farmer's market out there, and I don't know, I guess I just expected it to be busier and more things going on maybe. But there were a good amount of passerbys, and I'd never been out there to Rivian, so it was kind of cool to see the place, because it's a pretty nice campus out there. But yeah, ultimately just a little bit slower than I was expecting. But it was nice to see some the familiar faces from the Bloomington market. So yeah, it was fine. Just not exactly what I expected. I ended up playing an extra hour, and there was this thing that happened that was kind of awkward and weird, so I figured I'd talk about it. But so I started playing a song, one of my favorite songs, in fact, cover-wise. Was Superstition by Stevie Wonder, and getting towards the end of my set, and this camera crew had been out there for a little bit, and I think they thought I was going to be done earlier. So then one of the guys walks up and interrupts my song completely, and ask if I would quit playing, essentially. And it's just an awkward feeling. I don't know. It's definitely not a big deal at all. And I felt like I could have maybe played it off a little bit better. Not that I said anything bad, but I feel like I wasn't really aware of how my face probably looked. But I was ultimately pretty nice about it, I think. But just the idea of like he couldn't wait 2 to 3 minutes for me to be done. It was in like the first chorus. Definitely rubbed me the wrong way, and that's one, like I said, one of my favorite songs to play. But he has deadlines, and I'm just some guy playing, so it's like probably more important whatever they were doing than what I was doing. So it's like I realized that it's not a huge deal, but I was just a little irked by that. But I went up and talked to him later and was like, it's totally fine. Like, you don't have to worry about this at all. It's not a big deal. Just wasn't ideal. There's only a slight difference between ideal and not ideal. It doesn't take much, but so it wasn't like the end of the world or anything. But I pretty much played straight through. So, and the awkward thing wasn't really my face. I think it was just like, so they were like, we're gonna be really quick, and then you can finish off. It was like 6:45 or 5:45, and I played till 6. So then they did stuff for a while. I was kind of quiet, kind of sat in my corner, and then eventually it seemed like they were done. So I was like, "Are you guys in the mic?" I was like, "Are you guys done?" And they were like, "Oh, it'll be just one more minute." But it had been like 10 minutes, and they said it would be like really quick. And I really was just trying to see if I should start packing my gear up because I was going to be done at 6. And it just felt like they felt awkward about it, and that's why I probably felt a little awkward about it, because they were probably like thinking I was like, "You guys done?" Like looking at my watch kind of thing. But it wasn't the case. It's not what I meant by it, and that's why I went up and talked to the guy at the end. It was like, it's totally cool. Like, don't no weirdness at all on my end. And I gave him some stickers and magnets and stuff. So hopefully that smooths stuff over. But I don't know. It's just overall a little bit on the weird side all around on that one. And then the Friday show, which I've played at this place called Arrowhead Country Club. I'd played here a few times before, and it usually goes pretty decent. One of them was a chili cook-off at like noon, so I mean that one may have not been the best way to judge it. But this was like, I thought it was just going to be like a patio party, because it's a country club, so it's a golf course, and they have like a ton of seating, and they just had opened like this crazy like pool that they redid everything, and seemed busy. But apparently it was hired for an event that it was like a date night, 9 and dine, I think is what it was called. So you play 9 holes with you and whoever you're dating, and come and eat dinner after. I don't think anybody really expected there to be live music, and it was. The other thing was, I got there pretty early for me, because I tend to run late, or my late is still on time, but you know what I mean. Like it was pretty earlier than I needed to, and right when I got there, I re-looked at the email, and it said I was even a half hour earlier than because I was playing a half hour later than I thought I was. So I was even a half hour earlier than early, and so, I took my time setting everything up. There's nobody out there in the back. It was a cool atmosphere out there. It's kind of a place over by Peoria. And so, I was excited, and I was like, oh, I'll make it sound good. I just gotten some new replacement pedals for my board, and was looking forward to trying those out. But the show, the time came up, and nobody was out there. Like, so apparently I talked to the person who booked it, and they were like, the people aren't going to show up. It depends on how good of a golfer they are, because 9 holes to one person is a different time frame than 9 holes to a different person. So it seemed like everybody's really late. I started probably about an hour late. Like, it was 8:30, and I was sitting out there by myself, just kind of waiting. I felt super awkward, but it was a nice night, though. I mean, it was a nice night out on a country club, like nicely manicured landscape and kind of naturey feel. So I mean, that part of it was kind of nice, but it just felt a little weird. And so then the show happened, and I felt like nobody really expected there to be live music. They'd already paid probably X amount of money to do this thing anyway, so it wasn't like I made a lot of tips or anything like that. And it was a little bit on the older side crowd-wise, so I ended up playing very, very softly, which I can do, but not my favorite thing to do. And I went like probably 45 minutes over. Supposed to be done at 10:30. I think people kind of cleared out around 11:15. It just seemed like a lot of work for something that people didn't really want ultimately. But I still had fun. It was fine. I got to rock out. Who cares? Try some new pedals. Try some interesting things. I didn't feel quite dialed in, but it was fine. I mean. And surprisingly, the show the next night was the best one of the week, and I kind of had the least expectation for this one, because it was just a private party for this guy in Pontiac that goes and sees me play at the Cellar, and it was a birthday party for him, and the way that kind of worked out was, well, first, when I was going there, it definitely rained, and it was like the clouds looked wild, and the wind was going nuts. It didn't quite rain until I got into town, pretty much pulled up to his place, and that's when it started raining. So, I went in and talked to them, and they were like, well, we could just postpone it. We could play inside, we could play outside. We weren't really sure because they had a little, like, awning covering thing for... Excuse me, pardon me, I'm very sleepy. I'm sure that yawning makes for a good podcast. Anyway, so yeah, we weren't really sure, so we ended up postponing for like an hour to try to get over the rain. And then I came back and we kind of determined, don't use any electrical gear. And didn't want to play in the garage that, kind of where they set up base camp, because it would have just been too loud and too, like, invasive. So, I just set my little foot drums up right outside the garage with the little cover, and I just played for 4 hours. I mean, it was a long set, but I was having a lot of fun. I mean, it was like, not a lot of people were in and out. There was like, 7-10 people maybe max at a time, and people in the garage could hear, and people like were out front playing bags. It did kind of rain, on and off for the whole first like 2 hours, but since I was covered and didn't have anything crazy. And the other thing is, like, I don't know that people really know how loud a PA system is. Like, if I would have plugged in, I would have been like 3 times as loud, even if I dialed it back, because I feel like I was already a little bit more intrusive than maybe they expected. That's why, like, I decided to go outside just in general, because if I would have played inside, it would have been crazy. And, but yeah, I mean, it was just like, it was kind of like a loud Bluetooth speaker, so it was good. And I just played tons and tons of songs, some originals, lots of covers. It was a birthday party, so I wasn't gonna get crazy. Old friend of mine, Joey Monahan from Pontiac, he ended up stopping out, and I got him to play a few tunes, and it was cool to kind of chat and catch up with him, see what he's been up to. And he still sounded very, very good, which was a delight to see and hear, and just kind of catch up with him a bit. So yeah, it was just kind of wild that not the one I expected to kind of be the most fun that weekend, but it was. And then I got home at like a reasonable time too, because I think I played like 5 to 9 or something like that. So I was home by like 10:30. So then the next weekend I was supposed to have 3 shows. That's the way it was booked, and I rechecked all the messages and whatnot, but apparently the cruisins in Peoria double booked with none other than the Kyle Yap. So I was a little disappointed by that. I hadn't played at cruisins in a while, and I looked at the messages and it looked like it was legitly booked. But if anybody's going to take my gig, I'm happy it's Kyle. And we had even talked about maybe splitting it, but the way it worked out just didn't really make sense for us to do it. But it would have been fun. It just, I didn't want to force it. And I called the bar, and they had him written down and everything. So, it's Kyle. He's great. He'll do a good job, and I'll just take the night off. And that's kind of how it went. And I do have a couple makeup dates there. So I got one September like 30th or so, and then I think I have one in November and one in December. So that'll be cool to be back there quite a bit. I was like playing in Peoria. But anyway, so pretty much just had the night off, and I ended up writing a song that night. And it was the first like complete song I've written in a really long time. Not a very upbeat one, I'll say, but I was I was pretty excited about it, and I'll get more into that kind of down the line. But first song I'd written in a while, and then the next day during the day I ended up recording like a rough cut of it, and I sent it to a buddy, Ryan Wolf, the guy who was on the last pod, and he seemed to really like it. So kind of, I don't know, it just felt good to write something that I was kind of proud of, and just to kind of watch it unfold in front of me. And it kind of gave me a little more inspiration for like my next full TyJon Charlie album, because I had this big plan of doing this album with the Unemployed Architects called The Lock and the Reel. And I just eventually was like, I'm just going to have to kind of give up on that because it's too much work to try to schedule everything. So my new plan is to do this album that I wanted to do with Unemployed Architects, but with the TyJon Charlie stuff. And this song fits right. I mean, I wasn't really planning it, but this song, I have one other song called Wings that I've been working on the iPad recording, and turning out pretty cool, but I'm still going to go to the studio and whatnot. And then I did this rough cut, and I was like, I think I could just record a good version of this on the iPad, and just that would be the real part. So, and then just try to keep, if I did 4 or 5 solid, like kind of studio for the lock, and then did 4 or 5 of the kind of acoustic living room recordings, which very much inspired by Ryan Wolf, honestly, because he recorded his whole album here, and I really dug how that sounded and sounds. So, and I do look forward to everybody hearing that and checking that out, because it's a cool album and cool idea. Very courageous, and something just about like the naturalness of it, the realness of it, as far as how he sounds. But so I got a rough cut of that. But anyway, I'll get back to that later. So the next show is Heritage Harbor in Ottawa, which was a cool scene. I like driving up there. I determined it was honking. I can hear some honking outside. What's going on? But it's just a fun drive, because you get up by kind of what is it, Rock Island, and there's little area of shows they play up there. Bear Island Resort in Utica, right across from that. Jamie's Outpost in Utica, which I'll get to that one in a second. And then now this Heritage Harbor place, all within like the Jamie's Outpost and Bear Island Resort are literally like 2 minutes from each other, and then the Heritage Harbor one was maybe 20 minutes away. But it's just a cool area up there. Like, it's very scenic, and there's rolling hills and some kind of rock kind of looking, not mountains but hills, I guess, and lots of good spots for hiking. So I don't know, that put me in a good mood kind of on the way out there. And I got there. I was a little confused because it was Heritage Harbor was the person who booked it. That's what he said, I was playing at. But it was really, I think, the Red Dog or something. And they had a little outdoor, like, tiki bar type thing. And it was another hot night, but it had covering to kind of protect me from the sun a little bit. And people kept coming up to me and being like, "Are you the same guy from last night?" Because he did, I guess whoever was there the night before looked pretty similar to me. And I had to be like, "Nah, I'm somebody different." Because they were like, "He was really good." So it's like, I hope I can live up to that expectation. And yeah, it was right on the water, kind of a beach town vibe. The crowd was small but mighty. I mean, they were into what I was doing, and it sounded, really pretty good. I ended up just, steadily turning down throughout the whole first, like, probably 20, 30 minutes, which, is a theme of mine, I think, where I start too loud a lot. But anyway, it was a lot of fun. I ended up playing like an extra half hour, 40 minutes, because the crowd was asking me for it, and it's hard for me to say no. And it was great. So then I head back to Bloomington, got there pretty late, and then slept a little bit, got back up. And the Jamie's Outpost show, which I really should have, because this was Sunday, it was a 2 to 6 set. I really should have just stayed in Ottawa or somewhere near Ottawa that night, or in even Utica, so that way I could sleep in. But as most of the time, I just decide the route to deprive myself of getting adequate sleep is the worst choice. So I ended up coming back to Bloomington, getting up early the next day. I think got up at like 8 or 9, and got out the door by 11. Got up to Jamie's Outpost maybe by noon. So on the way there, I had this like little gear inspiration where something clicked, and because I wanted to be loud because they were kind of worried about the one man band the last time not being enough, and this was just booked as a one man band performance, and I wanted to kind of come through, and so I had this. I have two of the JBL stacks, but they sound way different. So it's always really hard to run them in series together. So I end up using a bunch of splitters, running my mic one way and my mic the other way, and then they don't sound exactly the same, even if they're mixed the same. So it's always just like a roll of the dice. But this time I did it different. I had this inspiration. I was gonna plug. So I have. It's weird how they're set up because the monitor outs are RCA. So I'd gotten some converters a while back, which are RCA to XLR. So what I did was I did my normal JBL stack that I use, get it dialed in really, really good, how I normally have it. And then I plugged the monitor out of that one into the channel of the JBL and just ran it in series that way, which was a lot less cables and extra stuff. And actually was able to run a floor monitor as well this way, and it was great. It sounded really, really good. One of the few times that when I have one of these, ideas, that it actually kind of works out. And so I've been doing that pretty much anytime I need to, and kind of maybe a day or two before that, Donnie from the Heroic Charade had hit me up about seeing if if I had any shows around the time he'd be in town, which turned out to be this last Saturday. So I was trying to figure out a good way to do the sound for all of us, because I didn't want to really bring a bunch of extra stuff, but with this new way, I was like, I'll be able to, do it pretty easily this way, because I can just let them use the one I'm plugging my original JBL into to amplify the sound through the secondary one. I can just use that for theirs and make everything. So, a lot of things were just coming together that way, and I'm really glad I figured that out, because it had been, I don't know, it had been a thought bug. I just kind of going down this pathway of how am I gonna do the sound? And of course I ended up and didn't even do it the exact way by the time I did the sound for Donnie and Ross, but I'll get to that later. But so the Jamie's Outpost, another awesome drive, kind of afternoon, perfectly sunny day. As the Heritage Harbor one, the evening before was just about the same. Just put me in a very good mood. And then I got set up a little bit quicker than I thought I would, and I didn't sweat too much, and it sounded really good. And I played for 4 hours all by myself, and it was a really, really fun show. I mean, I had a blast, and sounded great. I mean, of course I had some off things here and there, but for the most part, I also kind of had this epiphany, singing wise, that kind of opened up my singing voice a little bit more than I think I had been. So made it just a lot easier to sing. Plus having the floor monitor, I think, definitely made it a little bit easier to hear. So that all being said, I think, it's just fun, just a fun show. And the drive home again was scenic, and I was done by, I think it was 6 was when I ended, so I got on the road maybe 7:30. So I mean, it wasn't even a late night. And then on that same day, I'd gotten a text from the night shop about seeing if I was available this Thursday, the Thursday after that, which, I'm pretty much always game. So I was like, yeah, definitely. And so I ended up doing the show. I played with last minute booking, so of course I knew I wasn't probably going to bring a ton of people out or anything, but I like the chance to go and play an hour of all original music and through a big sound system and get try to get comfortable that way. And I think it sounded decent enough. I think that the sound guy that was there did a really nice job for what I had going on. I ended up playing first, which a lot of times when I play with the other bands, they end up having me last. So I don't know which is better, but in this case there were some people there, but there wasn't a ton of people there, and then a lot of people just eating dinner. The other bands were Nick Dittmeyer and the Sawdusters, and then a band called Daisy Chain from Chicago. Both were very good. The Nick Dittmeyer and the Sawdusters band, they kind of like this country Americana kind of vibe, and it was a lot of good guitar playing, a lot of interesting guitar work, and I had a blast during my set. I felt like I sounded probably the best I've ever sounded there. There were a couple moments where it's like, I wish I would have put more vocal in the monitor, and then I would forget and not try to get it fixed after each song. But I think it's still, I did a good job. And then the other band, Daisy Chain, the band from Chicago, kind of the headline. They were really cool. They were a lot of very kind of psychedelic rock or something. I don't know I think that's what they call them on their Night Shop website. But they really good harmonies, some cool guitar work. It was a good show. It was nice to see some people into it. It was pretty loud. I ended up wearing earplugs the whole time, but it was a fun show to watch, and it was very interesting. Like, it wasn't like what I would expect from a rock band. Kind of had some different vibes. So yeah, that was good. And then Friday, I had 2 shows that day, which that was a little bit of a day. It was Vermilion River Beer Company. They had me 11:30 to 1:30. So, I had to be there by like 10:30, which I ended up getting there like 10:15. And it was outside. Looked like it could rain, but it was hot. And I was, I was not necessarily, just the early shows and the drive and the getting up early is always a little bit tough for me. But it worked out fine. I think I sounded actually pretty good. I had one of the workers there ended up and said I was the most professional sounding musician they had there. So that made me feel really good. And I do feel like it sounded pretty solid. And they gave me a free meal, which was awesome because they had a food truck too. And really, Decatur was not Decatur, Danville. My next show was in Decatur. Danville was killing it because they had me 11:30 to 2:30, and then they had Summer Sounds, which we did a couple of years back, and it's like in this park across the street. It's like this big event where they block off the street. And it was a lot of fun when we played it, and then they had a band at 9 back at Vermilion River Beer Company, which a guy I know, Justin Michael Brown, I believe is his name, or Michael Justin Brown. I always get him confused, but he's in a band called Kill the Martian that was playing there. So I mean, and then they had shows on Thursday. I think they have shows on Saturday sometimes. It's just like that area is really, really supportive of local live music, which is awesome. So then after my set, I had to hightail it to Door 4 Brewing in Decatur, and I was thinking I would be outside. It was definitely a little bit longer of a drive than I had, because I didn't really look at a map too closely before like the night before, and I realized that they're an hour and a half away from each other, which wasn't ideal. So it was like Bloomington, hour and a half to Danville, hour and a half to Decatur, and then an hour home. So all that kind of definitely added up quite a bit to be a little bit of a rough day. But it wouldn't have made sense to drive all the way back to Bloomington after the first show and then drive to Decatur. Would have ended up in the car even longer. So I don't know. I don't know what the best route was. I was thinking they're both south, so it'll be fine to have them on the same day. But I got there plenty early at the Door 4 Brewing, and I had to restring a guitar, so I did that. And I don't know if I was just tired or worn out from, there's even a different, because I played 2-hour sets that day. So, I mean, that's 4 hours. So it's not much different than the Jamie's Outpost I did the Sunday before, but except that you have to set up, tear down, set up, tear down. So you have an extra set up, tear down in there than if it was just a 4-hour set at one place, plus the car and getting up early. I don't know. I just felt like And the other thing was I thought I would do really well at this show because I was like, oh, I did good at the first one in Danville. I'm going to be warmed up. It's going to be easy, and it was not the case at all. I just felt like real not good. I don't know what it was. Like I don't know if because I played outside at the beginning. I don't know if I turned down enough especially at the beginning. I ended up turning it down like the whole time, and it wasn't like a big turnout. I kind of thought I'd be outside again because it was definitely hot, but I feel like it probably would have sounded better if I was outside. I don't know, just a lot of little things. And there was this group from this other place I play at called Golden Fox Brewing. So a bunch of those people, one of them was the owner who books me over there, came out. And I didn't even know that it was them when I was playing. I just wish they would have been at a better show. But I mean, I don't know. They still gave me a bunch of compliments at the end. I didn't feel like I was there. I wasn't as courageous at the show. My initial plan was, Thursday I played all originals, which was just an hour set. Friday, the first show, I played a lot of original, threw some covers in there, but mostly original songs because I was gearing up for this Distill show on Saturday. So I was like, door 4, I'll just run that same set because it's 2 hours. And that's about how long the set will be at Distill minus Donnie and Ross's performance. So I was like really trying to get ready on the, just run the same set like, touring bands promoting an album would do. But I got very, very uncourageous about, 20 minutes in, I think. So I was like, all right, well, I guess I'm just going to try to play a bunch of covers and just, win the crowd over. And to an extent, I probably did. I just didn't feel like I knew it could have sounded better. So it was hard for me to sit with and be positive about. But, I tried. And so, that put me in a little bit of a weird headspace for the Distill Brewery show, which I was already a little bit like, it's my favorite show of the summer. And then Donnie and Ross happened to be in town at this time. So, in a way that's great, but then it also gives me a little, extra anxiety because then I don't have as long to kind of get in the pocket. Because, 2 hours is kind of a shorter set for me, honestly. So with their 20-minute set at the beginning, and they played a couple songs kind of halfway through, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to get there, I was a little worried about it. I ended up getting there at like 3:15, and it was like the hottest day so far. So I got there so early because I brought an extra PA system essentially for them to use because even though I'd kind of figured out, Jamie's Outpost that I could do it the other way, I still didn't really want to be plugging in cables and taking pictures of mixes and, trying to get, if they use my stuff, then I would have had to, well, it was all my stuff, but they use my regular main stuff, then I would have had to, unplug some things every time they played, and then I would have to replug and reset things, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I thought the best way was just to go really early, and to an extent, I think that was correct. I did have some problems with my secondary mixer because the power cable was like it must be about severed on one of the joints because needs to be like resoldered or something because it kept like cutting out. But we ended up and got it in a place where it kind of held, and Donnie and Ross got there about an hour early, which was a little wild for them because they're usually kind of by the seat of their pants, and they sounded great. It was awesome to hear them. The two of my really good friends, definitely fellow musicians. We've done probably hundreds of shows together back in the day, and when we're out in Colorado, we would always see them because they lived out there at a certain time. But so now the story is, though, that Ross still lives in Colorado, but Donnie lives in Florida, so they don't ever get together. So it just kind of all worked out that they were both going to be in the Pontiac, Bloomington kind of area this weekend. And so, I wanted to hear them play because, it's a very, very, it's like a treat. It doesn't happen very often. So ended up and it just went really swimmingly for them. I mean, I think they sounded awesome for, just running through some songs the day before, the day of, right before. They just kind of, they have really, really solid harmonies, and that they have some really good songs, and it was just nice. And then they brought a bunch of extra people that I hadn't really seen in a while, which was great to kind of catch up with some old friends. And I had a couple other friends that kind of singer fellow musicians, Mike Emmons, who I grew up playing music with, and then Jay Dietrich, who when I got to Bloomington was the first guy I kind of would do shows with for a long time. And he was the first fellow, and we became pretty good friends. I've probably talked about both of them on here before, but they both don't really play a whole lot of music anymore. But it was just really nice that they showed up and they were there and could witness Donnie and Ross, because we all know each other from in different ways and different facets of I mean, Mike's from Pontiac, so of course he knows Donnie and Ross from that. And then Jay, I think I introduced Donnie to Jay at one point in time, and I don't know that he really knew Ross, but Jay's an amazing singer and can sing harmonies really nice. So I really wanted him to see Donnie and Ross play, because that's their probably strongest part. And so that was really just great. And then I pulled them on stage. I picked a song that has a bunch of harmonies and that I figured they would all know. And it was Little Lion Man by Mumford and Sons. And we did it as a duet. Or no, not, it was a 4-part. We did it as 4-part. So, and I've seen a video, kind of a poor quality one, and it sounded pretty good for just us winging it. It was not like we practiced it at all. And then I had Donnie sing a couple with me, just us two. Him and Ross came up for, I think, another one with me, Donnie, and Ross. And yeah, it was just a fun night. I was kind of in the pocket that night. I was really happy that all worked out. So that was like a relief that I sounded pretty good. I brought a ton of extra gear, so I was there from 3:15 to about 10 p.m. And I'm glad I brought an extra shirt, because it was so hot. I sweat through it so fast. That first one, even the second one, by the end of the night. But it ended up and was a nice night. Cooled off, and it wasn't packed to the brim, but it's just a cool scene out there. You got the lake behind you, you got a big lawn in front of you, people just kind of relaxing and drinking and eating some meals, and just very kind of chill, laid back vibe. And it was a great show, one for the books. And it's I'm not honestly very sure if I'll be back out there ever, because I know that they just changed booking people. So we'll see. I mean, I hope to be, but at least if I don't, it went out on a great note, because it was so fun. And my brother and his very pregnant wife Emily had come as well, and they only came for last 30 or 45 minutes, but it was very nice of them to spend their evening with me. I think Emily thought that she would go into labor sometime that night, but it didn't really happen, so they just wanted to be close to the hospital. She actually had the baby today, so that's pretty exciting, and I have a new niece, so pretty excited about that. We went to the hospital and saw her, I think about an hour or so ago, and May is her name, and May Ellen, so that's exciting. But anyway, that whole night at Distill was just I don't know, it was a trip. It was very nostalgic, and everybody sounded great, and I sounded pretty good, and I was happy for, the people they brought to hear me sound that way. Plus there was, some new faces, plus there were some people that had seen me elsewhere, and everything just really, for as long of a day as it was a great day, and, it was just awesome. And then Sunday, so the next episode of this podcast, I'll be having Don and Ross from the Heroic Charade on here. So that's what we did on Sunday afternoon. And then we just played some music and had a good time and hung out a little bit. But so I'll be, that'll be next. That'll be what you're kind of that's what I'm setting this podcast up for the next episode will be with them. And that's a long one. We had a lot to talk about. I think I've had them both on separately, but it was nice to have them both kind of in person together, and so that was cool. So that'll be something to be on the lookout for if you saw us play. I'm sure that would be more interesting when we were all jamming together and when you saw them separately. And then I had some recording time set up, and I don't know. I was planning on doing Wings like this whole time, and I had been working on a cleaner cut of that song I had talked about earlier that I wrote in one night, like a week prior. And at the last minute, I was just like, if I just do this song, I could probably be done with it, very, very soon. And so I went in there and was like, if we have time to start Wings, that'd be great. But also, all this stuff's on my iPad, so I wanted to like get the process. I thought this would be a simpler one to start with, to kind of understand I would be getting Eric, the engineer, the files for him to mix and master. And but it was kind of, I had some file frustration. I had to export all these files that I had in GarageBand, and they just like were not exporting right, and each export took forever, and then it would fail at the end. And I probably had like 16 tracks because I did a bunch of vocal takes and had some different things going on, and it was very frustrating because I wasted probably an hour and a half just sending him the songs before we even really got to mix and master them. And also I ended up doing some work to one of the State and Water live performance songs that's going to be on the live album coming out. So between that, we didn't even really get to the Wings song, but I'm really happy with the way both of those are turning out. I mean, I think I'm in next Tuesday, and I think honestly I'll be able to get the rest of the State and Water song like completely how I want it, which I wasn't really sure if what we did this last time would really, cut it. But and then I think I'll definitely be able to get the new song, the brand new one that I'd just written, done, which will be, pretty epic for me to write a song and then record it within a month is pretty crazy. I mean, really, it's been like a week and a half, and then I got another week so end up and be under 3 weeks probably, which is crazy. And then I have like stuff ready to release, for the next like 2 months already, maybe longer, because August 19th is when the first round of State and Water songs will be released to the fresh TyJon Charlie page on Spotify and all the other streaming sites. And then I'll have another round 6 weeks from there, which will be, from the same performance, but not the whole album, kind of like a single kind of mentality, and then, but with multiple songs. And then the full thing, which will be 6 weeks from that. And then I will have this song that I'm working on, which will be the first song on the reel. And I've been thinking about, the lock and the reel thing that I was talking about earlier. The real stuff is all going to be kind of like the living room recording, just me and a guitar, because I have a lot of songs that kind of work nicely that way, and just real raw sounding songs that aren't dressed up at all, and it just sounds like me playing like in the next room over, and so I'd like to maybe turn that into my next vinyl. So I'd have the lock and the reel. Obviously, you could listen to the studio songs on the Spotify, and I might even get CDs made for the lock, and then like the reel would be like just the acoustic kind of broken down songs that are pretty much live performances. I mean, I'm not recording to a metronome or anything like that. I've been playing them, and not dressing, like I said, not dressing them up at all. So they're just like more authentically me. So I don't know, and then have that on vinyl, because I feel like that'll fit the vinyl vibe really, really splendidly. So that's about it. But I mean, it's a lot, and then I got 3 coming up this next 2 weeks. So 3 each week for the next 2, and I think for every weekend in July I have 3 now, or August. I don't even know what month it is. Hopefully I get some sleep soon. But generally, that's it. That's what has been going on. I know it's a lot. And like I said, be on the lookout for the Heroic Charade podcast coming out probably next week. So, and I'll keep you informed on how the new recording's going, and hopefully have some stuff to talk about on that front as well next time. So, the next time I do a solo one, anyway. But anyway, as always, I appreciate anybody who takes the time to listen, and I will talk to you next time. All right, have a nice day.